Okay, welcome everybody to this meeting of the Constitution Committee. I'm Ewan Walters, Senior Democratic Services Officer. We have a couple of substitutes for the meeting today. We have Mr. Rhodes is substituting for Blake Payne. Can you hear us, Mr. Rhodes?
I can.
Great. And we have Mr. Brecken substituting for Nick Rushton. Can you hear us, Mr. Brecken?
Yes, I can. Thanks, Ewan.
Excellent. And then the normal committee members, we also have Dr. Einan. Are you there, Dr. Einan?
Yes, thank you, Ewan.
Excellent. Mr. Shepherd, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent. And Mr. Galton, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent. So the first agenda item today is appointment of chairman. Now, Mr. Rushton was nominated as chairman-elect at the County Council meeting on the 8th of July. Although he's not here today, can I have somebody to propose and second that Mr. Rushton is appointed as chairman for the rest of the council year?
I will move that.
I will second
Thank
that.
you. Do you have a seconder?
I will
Thank
second
you. Everybody in favour, Mr. Rushton? Thank you very much. Okay, so Mr. Rushton is now appointed as chairman of the Constitution Committee for the 2020-21 year. But as Mr. Rushton is not present at the meeting today, we also need to appoint a chairman for today's meeting. So do I have any nominations for chairman for today's meeting?
I nominate Mr. Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. Does anybody want to second that?
Happy to second.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for chair for today? No? Okay, so everybody in favour of Mr. Rhodes chairing the meeting today, please raise your hand. Thank you. So, Mr. Rhodes, I'll now hand over to you to chair the rest of today's meeting.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and I will do my best to conduct the meeting properly on this one occasion. Right, we now need to formally elect the deputy chairman. So, shall I move from the chair? That'd be Blake Payne.
I will second that.
Okay, any other nominations? Is that agreed, everybody? Yes. Yes, I think that's agreed. Thank you. Item 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of November 2020, which have been circulated. Are we happy to approve those? I assume everybody just holds their hands up. Yes, agreed. Thank you. I don't have any questions under item 4 or any under item 5, or any items which need to be taken as urgent. Are there any declarations of interest? Mr. Brecken, I think, yes.
Yeah, I just want to declare, just on page 8, your proposed independent persons 2020. I think as a former city magistrate as well, I may well know Mr. Richard Goff, so it's just declaring that as a personal interest.
That's fine. Any others? No, thank you. I think I just ought to mention that as the chairman of Employment Committee, I was also the chairman of the panel on independent persons, which is the subject of the next item, and therefore I actually obviously know now by interview all the people there because I interviewed them. That doesn't constitute an interest, it's just an observation I think I ought to make. So we'll move now to item 8, which is on page 5, and I think it's going to be introduced by Lauren Haslam. Am I right?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Rhodes, and good afternoon, members. It's a rather dry report, I'm afraid, today. The Localism Act requires that the council has in place independent persons. The purpose is twofold. Firstly, to support members, the members' complaint process. Secondly, to support procedures for dismissal of statutory officers. So that's the chief exec, the monitoring officer, myself, and the director of finance. The current panel hold office until the end of this month, and in June the Corporate Governance Committee agreed to undertake a joint appointment process with the Combined Fire Authority to benefit really from the sort of efficiencies and economies that would offer, bearing in mind that that authority also needs to have independent persons in place, and also the commonality of some members of our authority, the County Council obviously being members of the CFA as well. As Mr. Rhodes has indicated, there's a recruitment process that then followed. So there's a public advert placed, current incumbents were invited to reapply. Some decided to do so, and some took the opportunity to stand down, and I thank them on behalf of the County Council for the service that they've offered. There then followed some interviews which were rather rigorous, with some case studies and sort of detailed questions, rather like a job application process, before an appointment panel. I didn't participate in that because of the nexus between the role of the independent persons and the ability to, be involved in my dismissal or disciplinary action. It didn't feel appropriate for me to participate. So the panel were advised by Gordon McFarlane and Anthony Cross, who, as you know, is the Assistant Head of Law. I think the panel was chaired by Mr. Rhodes, and 6 persons were interviewed, and 7 persons were interviewed, rather, 6 of whom are recommended for appointment for 4 years, taking us up to the end of September 24. And the appointments actually have to be made by the council. So today the recommendation to this committee is that the committee, if they're happy to do so, recommend the 6 persons who have been identified in the report, that those 6 persons be appointed by the council when it meets at the end of this month. I think that's probably all I can say on the report, but obviously happy to take any questions if members have any.
Any questions? No, I can just give you a little bit of information because, as she said, I chaired the panel, and it was an all-day event, and we had 7 interviews to do. So it took from early in the morning until until very late in the afternoon. Then we agreed the list. And they're the names which are in front of you in paragraph, in the recommendation in paragraph 15, but listed also in paragraph 10, Richard Goff, Gordon Grimes, Tina Herring, Hema Kochecha, Surinder Sharma, and Pamela Roberts. So since I was there and was participating in it, I will move the recommendation.
I will second that, Chairman.
Are there any speakers? No. Shall we move straight to the vote then? Those in favour, if you hold your hands up and I can see you all, and that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So now we move to the next item. I think, Lauren, you're going to introduce this as well, are you not?
I am. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
The Charitable Trust Future Arrangements Report.
Yeah.
So just by way of introduction, Part 3 of the Council's Constitution vests in this committee the functions of the County Council as a charitable trustee, and to that extent, that is the capacity in which you as members should be approaching this report. I'll begin, if I may, by acknowledging that there's been some delay in progressing with the decision that was made in principle by this committee in July last year to progress with the transfer of some of the funds in relation to which the council is the sole trustee to the Leicestershire and Rutland Community Foundation. I was in the position to bring this report to the committee really in the spring of this year, but I'm afraid due to events it's got pushed off the agenda in light of other sort of competing priorities, which perhaps had maybe of a higher degree of urgency. So I'm sorry that it's taken a little bit longer than I would have liked to bring it back before members. The reasons for the proposed transfer are set out in the background section of the report and relate principally to the difficulties in administering the trust because of the small size of individual funds and the outdated objectives which are difficult to apply in the modern era. At the same time, the Charity Commission are taking an active role in seeking to reactivate trusts which are dormant or quasi-dormant, and are actively encouraging councils to move towards the transfer, the sort of transfer that's proposed in this paper to the community funds, to ensure that the funds are properly applied and used in the public interest. So following the last meeting, I undertook an engagement exercise with a broad range of schools representing all sectors and age ranges, and also a second round with schools who may be perceived to have a link to the original objects of the individual trusts referred to in this report. I think it's fair to say there was a limited response to the engagement. In relation to the schools that I randomly selected to seek views, only 2 responded, but both were positive to support the proposal. Those schools which may broadly have been perceived to be linked to the existing trust, I've separated out, and those are the ones that are referred to in paragraph 9 of the report in the table there. And I'll come back to those, if I may. There's some further work to be undertaken in relation to the future arrangements for those trusts. The table at paragraph 8 of the report sets out the details of the trust which is proposed to transfer to the Leicestershire and Rutland Community Fund. Just to remind members, the capital sum referred to is not available for distribution, but it's the income from the fund which is applied for the benefit of individuals. During the period since the committee last met, we've been working in the background on the fund agreement and the transfer agreement, and with the Charity Commission to ensure that we meet their relevant requirements. The objects of the charity of the trusts and charities that are referred to in paragraph 8 are broadly educational and poverty related, and it's intended that the community fund operate the fund, which I think we decided last time we met to call the Leicestershire Education Trust, to apply the income from the capital for sums for schools in Leicestershire. And we framed it along these lines to support vulnerable students who, for reasons of poverty or other disadvantage, need additional support or equipment, training, books, trips, or other provision to enhance their education and future opportunities. So that's really the difference between what is proposed for the new trust and the existing trust, many of which are rather more focused on sort of prize giving and awards, really, rather sort of perhaps a little bit old-fashioned in that sense. The way in which it'll operate, I think, is that there'll be a round of grant giving on an annual basis. We expect there'll be about £12,000 in interest from the accumulated fund to be donated, and the community fund, the way they operate for the City Council Education Trust, and I think we'll probably do something the same if members are happy, is that schools are invited to submit an application 3 or 4 months before the date of allocation, and they invite applications from any school that wishes to put an application forward, with a view to giving grants, 4 to 6 grants of around £2,000 to £4,000 each. Via a portal on their website, which we branded as relating to the county council. The benefit of the community fund is that obviously they've got a much bigger pool of funds, and if there are any applications that are submitted that are for amounts that are a deserving application, but there isn't sufficient money in this pot, there is access to other funds that maybe give a greater sort of benefit really to the community that we're trying to help with this fund. So then there'll be a one-off decision-making process in relation to that, and then obviously a grant agreement which will follow to make sure that the funds are properly applied, and the report back to this committee on an annual basis. The funds will then remain open for further donations. So I think there are other funds that the community fund are aware of that are broadly educational, and it'd be proposed to merge those also with this fund to support school related activity. In relation to the list of funds at paragraph 9, those when I undertook the engagement, the schools and colleges referred to there said, well, we've got a trust of our own. We think this may be part that they should be merged perhaps with our own trust. There's some more work to do around that, because we need to satisfy ourselves that that is an appropriate thing to do, and that the objects of the trusts match the objects of the existing trust that we're involved in. So I'm proposing that to be the second stage of this process, and to bring that back to committee when I think this committee next meets in November, by which time I think we'll be a little clearer on how to deal with those trusts that are listed at paragraph 9. So for today, really, I'm just asking the committee to approve the closure of the trusts that are referred to in paragraph 8, and to authorise me to take any steps necessary with the Charity Commission to achieve that, and to ask the Leicestershire and Rutland Community Foundation to set up the Leicestershire Educational Trust with those accumulated funds. And that there'll be then those funds will be applied as I've described, and report back to this committee on an annual basis on how they're operated, and a further report back to the committee in November on the trusts that listed in paragraph 9 of the report. So I hope that's sort of explained where we're up to, and obviously I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, it makes me quite happy, because I was involved with this before, and I remember the first paper coming to the Constitution Committee where we discussed it extensively. I think there are other members here today who probably also remember that. So I'm very happy with the what's being proposed, but let me take any contributions or questions. Mr. Shepherd, you have your hand raised.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't think this requires any personal interest declaration from me, but I'm saying it really in the interest of preventing work in future years for officers disentangling some vocabulary and language. It's the one about the Loughborough Burley College Spriggs Memorial Prize under paragraph 8. And I speak as a former teacher there, so that's my bit of personal knowledge. Just a matter of fact, the college has now changed its name, and it may be worthwhile preventing questions in future years, just to clarify that point. The word headmaster carries me back, I must admit, to former days and perhaps former vocabularies, but there we go. And just one final point. I mean, presumably the current college has got no view about this, but I happen to know that the Spriggs is the name of a former pupil who worked for ITN, and actually he died following some coverage of return to this country of Chichester from his round the world voyage. So a prize was donated in his memory. Presumably the college has got no objection to that now being transferred to this more general fund. I just say that by way of saying it now rather than wishing I hadn't said it now. No,
I understand. Well, I wrote to the, I think it's Charnwood College it's now called. I wrote to Charnwood College, and they didn't raise any concern or objection. So that's why it's in that part of the report.
Thank you. Could I just ask either Lauren or Ewan just to advise me? I said I don't think it's a personal interest. If it is, please tell me that, and I will declare it now.
I don't think it is, because we're not actually making any. And also, it's that this is a meeting of the trustees. You're not a trustee of that organisation, but I think we'll note it in any case, Mr. Shepherd. So it's for the sake of transparency.
Yes, in case questions are asked, indeed. Yes. Thank you.
Yes, just thinking about that, it didn't occur to me, but I was once a governor of the Melton Mowbray King Edward VII Upper School, but that's a long time ago, and of course it no longer exists.
Yes, and that's one of the issue with some of these. It's not only the schools that have changed, but the sort of objects of the trust are so out of date in many cases. They're very difficult to apply.
Yeah. Okay, any other contributions? In that case, I will move the recommendations under paragraph, I'll go back to it, paragraph 11, which is to approve the closure of the trusts referred to in paragraph 8 and above, transferring them to Leicestershire and Rutland Community Foundation, and ask the director to take the necessary steps. Request the Leicestershire and Rutland Community Foundation to submit an annual report to this committee on the operation of the fund, and to authorise the director to explore the future arrangements for the trust referred to in paragraph 9 and report back at a future meeting. So they're the 3 items I'm moving there. So a seconder for that?
Yes, I will second that, Chairman, certainly.
Seconded by Mr. Shepherd. All those in favour, if you could just raise your hands so I can see you. I think that's unanimous. And so that's, I think, completes our agenda, does it not?
Nothing else from me.
No, there's nothing else. There's date of the
Just
next
to confirm
meeting,
the date of the next meeting.
27th of November 2020, and there are no other items, so that's it. Thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you very much, members.
Thank you.
Have a nice weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.